All right, joining me once again here on the Matthew Filipowicz Show is my good friend Bryce Covert. Bryce is a writer for The Nation magazine and the economic policy editor at Think Progress, all of which you can find at brycecovert.com. You can also follow her on Twitter at Bryce Covert. Bryce, thank you so much for being on the show again.
Thank you for bringing me back on.
All right, so Bryce, we're in the middle of winter here. It's really, really cold most places. I know it's cold where I'm at. You recently wrote about how here we are, it's 2015, we're the richest country in the world, and we actually still have Americans who are freezing to death. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I have to say every winter when the weather gets really harsh like it is now, my first thought is often to the homeless because in this country we have more than 153,000 people on any given night who don't have shelter. And that's a lot of people. And it doesn't actually take very low temperatures to put people's lives at risk. Hypothermia can set in even around 50 degrees. So when it's really bad like it is now in a lot of the country, I know that we're putting lives at risk. And so far, unfortunately, that is the case. This winter, we know at least 4 people have died from exposure, and it's likely we'll see more. The homeless population holds memorial services every year for those who die on the streets, and they estimated that last year about 2,000 people died outside. And as you mentioned, we're one of the richest countries in the nation. We have lots of government programs, but homeless people really do often slip through the cracks. And the fact that we allow people to go without any shelter, one of the most basic necessities, and that ends up claiming their lives is really just horrific.
Yeah, and one of the people that you write about, again, it's like, I'm in Boston right now. It's freezing here in Boston. It's like below freezing. It's really, really cold. But a transgender woman in San Francisco has died already, Anastasia. And again, San Francisco gets cold, but not like, death-defyingly cold. So it's actually something that doesn't just affect like the north and stuff. It actually can affect lots of places.
Absolutely. Those 4 people who have died this year, someone in Detroit, someone in Bismarck, but someone also in Oklahoma, and like you said, Anastasia in the Bay Area, who was like a real known fixture in her neighborhood, died of exposure on a bench outside a coffee shop at the end of December. Like I said, hypothermia can set in at higher temperatures. I think people think it probably takes a lot to die from exposure, but it really does not take, below zero freezing temperatures. And unfortunately, that fact is not quite lined up with our policies. There's a temperature at which most cities will have a trigger for opening up more emergency shelter to try and house the homeless. But for a lot of them, they wait until it's 40 degrees or lower. Baltimore, for example, waits until it's 13 degrees with wind chill. So you can imagine by the point it hits that, people's lives are already at risk, and the shelters are probably already overcrowded.
13 degrees, that's when Baltimore does it? That's maddening. That's insane.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. And there's a bunch who also wait until it's in the 20s or freezing. And, you just imagine it's one thing to sort of walk around outside. It's already very, very uncomfortable. But if you're sitting down outside or lying down outside, if you have a substance abuse problem, drinking alcohol even puts you at more risk. It's just very easy if you're sleeping outside in the fall and winter months to put your life at risk. But a lot of people don't have anywhere else to go.
Well, so other than like more money for shelters and I mean, like that's obviously something that should be happening. We should be able to spending more money to if someone's life is in danger, we should be able to put them inside and keep them warm and keep them alive. But I mean, like, so beyond that, like, what else needs to be done? I mean, obviously, trying to actually get better jobs and getting homeless people jobs, or if they have a mental illness, getting them the treatment they deserve. What needs to be done to actually try to fight this?
Well, I actually have been trying to make the point a lot recently that mass homelessness, like what we experience now with so many people on the streets and so many people who can't afford a place to live, is a relatively new phenomenon. It didn't really start until the 1980s. And that fact should give us hope because it wouldn't take a whole lot to reverse it. I'm not going to pretend that it's something that's going to be happening soon, but it's mostly about housing. It's about the fact that there is just so little affordable housing right now. In 1970, there was actually a surplus of affordable housing units, about 300,000. By 2009, there was a 5.5 million shortage. So, in that time, we saw federal assistance on and spending on affordable housing really plummet. So, in many ways, this is a policy choice. If we had built more affordable housing, if we were doing more to subsidize the skyrocketing rents that we see across the country and help people get into homes, it sounds simple, but it's true that giving homeless people homes ends homelessness. And we've also found, people, I think that homelessness is a very complex problem, and it can come with complexities for many people. But the housing first approach is what we've learned really works, and that's where you put someone in housing before you try to deal with anything else, get them in a stable situation where they have somewhere to sleep, and then you address the other things. Is it a family that is lacking in jobs? Is it a person who's battling mental health or physical health issues or addiction? It's much easier to address those if someone actually has a roof over their head. And interestingly enough, 3 cities so far have proved that this is totally achievable. Just recently, last week, New Orleans announced it had ended veteran homelessness simply by putting people in homes. Salt Lake City and Phoenix last year ended chronic homelessness among veterans. Other cities are working towards these goals as a federal imperative towards them. And on top of all of this, I think the thing that's most important to realize is that putting people in housing instead of leaving them on the street is far more cost-effective than spending the money on emergency room visits and on police interactions that you get with people living on the street. It's just way, way cheaper to help them find a place to live and get them on their feet so that they can take care of themselves.
And I gotta admit, Bryce, I love the argument of just the very simple argument. It's like, well, what can we do to solve this problem? Put them in houses. It's really that simple. You put them in a house. You put them inside. Period. Do it.
Yeah.
It's like it's the moral thing to do, and actually economically, it's the right thing to do. Just put them inside, for the love of God. It's like this actually isn't rocket science here. This is actually pretty basic stuff.